All right, to continue on with the concept of legitimacy. Just to recap, the concept of legitimacy just means that the people within a country believe that the government or the authority has the right to rule over them. There are some factors that encourage legitimacy, that make legitimacy stronger between people and the government. One of those is nationalism, of course, patriotic feelings. If people feel a lot of pride in their country, and they are proud of their government, then the government will have more legitimacy. Shared political culture or ideology, if there's a common value set amongst the people, or the people have a common idea of the role the government should play in their lives, and everybody seems to be on the same page with what the government should or should not be involved with, that's going to give the authority within that country more legitimacy. If there's shared religion, if everybody is one religion, then they can kind of agree on, again, a value set within that country. Satisfaction with the government's performance or the government's responsiveness to the people's demands. If the government is a strong state and able to take care of their people and provide services that the people need to have a high quality of life or a higher standard of living, that government's going to have more legitimacy. And economic growth. If the country is able to make sure that everybody is taken care of, food on the table, roof over their heads, able to provide for their children, get their children education, people are going to be happy and give that government legitimacy. They're going to allow that government to rule over them. Okay. So we're going to move on to the idea of nations. Okay, so I told you that you really shouldn't use nations to identify a country. So you really shouldn't use the nation of the United States. It's the country or the state of the United States. You shouldn't use the nation of Nigeria. It's the country or the state of Nigeria. Nations are actually different. Nations do not necessarily have geographical borders like a state does. Remember, a state has sovereignty over a particular geographical area. Nations are different. Nations are people. It is a human community with a shared history, a shared culture, or political identity. Not all states have a common nation of people. Like us. In the United States, we do not have a common nation of people. Not everybody in the United States has a shared history, a shared culture, or a shared political identity. Not all nations have a state either, so you can have nations of people that aren't confined into one state. An example of people, nations of people that do not have a border or sovereignty within a state would be the Kurds, and I'm going to show you a map on the next slide that will show you the Kurdish nation that actually spreads across a couple of states. And Roma or Gypsies or Roma are a nation of people that are spread throughout Europe. Okay, and then nations of people also perpetuate the idea of nationalism. Nationalism is that common political identity. Okay, hopefully, just to go over this political cartoon, you see the two people. Obviously, they're Americans because the guy's wearing a U.S. t-shirt. It says, hopefully democracy will curb that dangerous Arab nationalism. Well, the irony is that he is very nationalistic himself. He has the eagle that's dominating the globe. He has a picture of George Bush with Jesus. So the idea is that he is very nationalistic, and he's criticizing people in Arab countries for being nationalistic themselves. Okay, so just to clarify the difference between nation and a state, and I'll start with state. A state is a political concept. Okay, so a state is a country with a border, like Turkey right here. So you see this clear border, right? It is not subject to outside control. So again, It has sovereignty. Nobody can tell Turkey what to do. Turkey can do what they want. They don't have to worry about answering to anybody else. They can establish laws. They can enforce laws over the people however they would like. And in Turkey, you're going to find that there's one or more nations of people. It's not just the Turkish people that live in Turkey. Okay, so you'll have, in the green are the Kurds. So there are some Kurds that live in Turkey. A nation is different. A nation is an ethnic concept. A nation of people is within an ethnic group. Okay. It may or may not be independent from outside control. You can have a nation of people that actually have their own state. An example of a nation of people that have their own state are the Jews in Israel. All right, so the Jewish people of Israel have a state that was set up just for them. Okay. And a nation of people may be made out of several different states. So the Kurds are a perfect example of that. You have high concentrations of Kurdish populations in Iraq, Iran, and Turkey. And then you have less dense populations of Kurds in Georgia, Armenia. Oops. That did that on their own. And part of Azerbaijan. So Azerbaijan, this is Azerbaijan, that's Azerbaijan. Okay, so the Kurds is a nation of people that span across different states. So they have to listen to different states' authorities. Okay. Regimes. You're going to hear the term regime used. Now, it is important for you to understand the difference between government, states, nations, and regimes. So when people are talking about a regime, they're talking about the political system within a state. So an example of regime would be democracy or authoritarian governments. Okay. Regimes set the rules that the state has to follow and how power is exerted over a period of time. So when we became an independent state of the United States, we decided that our regime was going to be democracy as opposed to a monarchy or an absolute monarchy or even a constitutional monarchy. And so over time, we understood that our state, our government had to follow the rules of a democracy, which meant the government is by the people, for the people. The people have to get to participate in free and fair elections to pick representatives to go and make laws for them. Okay, so that's the basis of our regime. Our regime of representative democracy endures beyond individuals who are running this government. Okay, so people who are worried about Donald Trump or Hillary Clinton being elected president, you have to remember our democracy is the regime. Our democracy is what stays strong. The leaders are temporary. The government is temporary. We're in control of the government because our regime is democracy. The government is different. The government is the group of people who are responsible for holding the authority in the state. So I'm going to try this metaphor out with you. I'm not sure how it's going to work. Okay, but the state is the machine. The regime is the programming, and the government is the operator. Okay, so the state is my computer. The regime is Apple OS operating system. And the government is me, the operator. Okay, so the state is the hardware, the regime is the program, and the government is me. Okay, so this map shows you that there are many mixed regimes in this country, in this world. Or different types of regimes. The maroonish color are authoritarian regimes, so definitely Russia has an authoritarian regime. Iran has an authoritarian regime. All right, China has an authoritarian regime. Then you have the green, that's partial democracy, I think, or fragmented. It's just not all the way democracy. Okay, so it's claiming that Mexico is like that. Trying to think. Yeah, no, that would be it. So that's the only one that we have to study, Mexico. Then you have full democracy, which would be the United States, the UK, and then you have hybrid regimes, which we'll get into a little bit later. And yeah, so you're like, what about Nigeria? Um, poor Nigeria. Nigeria is a special case, so and we'll definitely get into that. And the people who have Nigeria are going to be responsible for explaining that one to us, with my help, of course. All right, so that is the end of topic 2 notes. If you have any questions,